Good afternoon, everyone. Anthony Alaka with Torrey Hills Capital, and welcome to the Defiance Silver webcast for February 26th, 2025. Hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for taking the time to join our virtual lunch. To those of you who have not heard the story yet, we're very excited to bring you Defiance Silver. To those of you who have heard it, we're excited to give you an update. Defiance Silver is a mineral exploration company focused on advancing two major projects in Mexico. The Zacatecas Silver Project is located in the largest silver producing state in Mexico, where the company controls the second largest land package in the district. The Tepal Copper Gold Project also represents a significant opportunity with roughly $27 million already spent on exploration to date. Both projects are located in excellent jurisdictions with access to power, roads, rail, water, and port facilities. Company trades on the OTC under the ticker DNCVF and on the TSX Venture under the ticker DEF. Currently trading with a market cap of only about 48 million US, but with two major projects that have shown excellent results so far, multiple upcoming catalysts for potential re-rating, and a positive outlook for silver and other metals, we feel there's plenty of potential upside in the stock. With us today to discuss Defiance Silver's operations and growth strategy going forward is the company's chairman and CEO, Chris Wright, and the company's executive vice president, Doug Cavey. It's great to have you guys both on again to give our new viewers a glimpse of what the company is doing and an update on to some of those who you've met already. If anyone has any questions, I think everyone knows the format. Just simply type your question into the Q&A or chat box, and we will make sure that it gets answered. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Chris and Doug. Guys, the floor is yours.
Super. Thank you, Anthony, and thanks everybody for joining us today. We're excited to be able to present to you. And for those of you who have not heard the story, hopefully it'll be a nice new nice new story for you to hear. And with that, we'll get this going. So some key takeaways we'd like to leave you with today. Hopefully, if we can communicate this properly, as Anthony mentioned, we have two advanced projects, which gives us key exposure to some very key commodities, that being gold, silver, and copper. The stock has given investors tremendous historical leverage to those underlying commodity prices. And we're fortunate to be starting with projects that have a significant starting resources. And last but not least, we have a team in place that has successfully taken exploration projects through to M&A in Mexico in the recent past. So start off with why invest in Defiance Silver, and I think it's very difficult to make money in this sector when the commodity is not going your way, and that's been very evident the last number of years. But we've seen periods where silver has performed, and historically, whether this company has been doing, active exploration or not, it has given multiples to the returns in silver. You're looking back at 2016. We had a period there where this is before I had gotten involved in the management of and on the board of Defiance, and before Doug had joined the company. I have to admit that back then the company was really quite treading water, maybe as a way to put it. And even in that environment, we saw the silver price rally back in 2016 about 55%. The stock went up over ninefold. Fast forward to 2019, a smaller move in silver of 40%, was converted into a doubling of that move in the share price of Defiance. Coming into out of COVID, the COVID crash in March of 2020, all of the sector was beat down. All of the commodity prices were down. I think silver got down to about $11 an ounce. Obviously, it rallied hard off of that, up 155%. Our stock went up 18%. And even last year, around this time of year last year, we saw a 43% rally in silver prices, and our stock went up 500%. Now, there's obviously no guarantee that this is the way that this will perform in the future, but historically, this name has given investors good torque to the underlying commodity moves. And I think that what we're looking at now in terms of commodity prices, where we are in the cycle, the performance of gold, and a bit of a lag here on silver, that there's some catch up to be made. And we think this would be a good name for people to consider to put into their portfolio for that exposure. Investing in in the junior exploration space is difficult. And there are certain things I like to talk to people about, that certain characteristics that I think are important for investors to increase their probability of success when investing in the sector. Um, One of them is you need to have projects that have the metal. If you don't have the metal, if it's not in the ground, then there's nothing you can do about that. You may fool some investors for some time, but eventually you'll get found out, and it's not going to be pretty. So the reality is we have what I would deem to be two standalone company making assets on their own. The legacy project is our Zacatecas Silver project, located in the state of Zacatecas, just outside the city of Zacatecas, and that's in the center of Mexico. That asset was the initial property that was put into Defiance Silver back in the early 2010s. My involvement in the company came in 2014 as an investor. My firm, Windermere Capital, is the largest shareholder. And then after about 5 years of letting the incumbent management team try to move things along, I joined the board in 2019, and then stepped in as CEO after a few months to initiate a turnaround. That's when we brought Doug and the Orquest team in to help us to do a full assessment of these assets to make sure that what we had was something that we should be keeping and not selling. And if we were going to keep them, they help us design a plan to move them forward. And one of the plans was to in Zacatecas was to compile a district scale land package. We started off with a relatively small 750 hectares, which was a past producing mine. San Nicasio has been in production since the 1500s and was most recently in production in the 1980s. It's produced over 100 million ounces of silver. So we went and started to cobble together through deals with Mag Silver and with Pan American Silver, their camp assets, and we are now the second largest concession holders in the Zacatecas camp with 4,300 hectares. There is a historical resource that was on the property when I first invested. We are in the process of we've just put out a new technical report on the property, and we're in the process of updating that resource estimate. We think that's going to grow dramatically, and we'll have that out later on this year. Our other property is our Topal Gold Copper project, which is also very advanced. It's a different animal though. It's had a lot of work done on it in the past. It's been in the hand of some majors and some juniors. We acquired it back in the end of 2018, but when we acquired a company called Val Oro Resources, which used to go by the moniker of Geologics. And Geologics back in the 2010s on this asset alone had a market cap of roughly $250 million. And that's because it has 2 million ounces of silver and 1 billion pounds of copper. So it's a good starting point for us in terms of the metal being there. We see a real path to expanding that, and that's what we'll talk about later today. So first and foremost, let's talk about those characteristics that we need to have. Having the metal is necessary. We know we have the metal in both projects, and now we're on a path to unlocking the value by moving those assets forward. The second thing you need to do is you need to have a team that knows how to do that. And we've got a lot of experience on our team. Mine is in the capital markets. I'm not a geologist. I'm not a mining engineer. Frankly, the rocks all look the same to me, and that's why I count on my geological team so heavily. And it's important to us that we have the world-class team, and we do. Doug, his father George, who was VP exploration for Orco Silver, when they drilled that out in the early 2010s, early 2000s to 2013. They took that. That is La Preciosa, Mexico. It's about 3 hours away from our project. They drilled that up from 7 million ounces of silver to 264 million ounces. And that was eventually acquired by Coeur in a bidding war with First Majestic for $380 million. We've ported the bulk of that team over to Defiance as our exploration team, and then it includes Doug as our executive vice president, George Cavey, his father, is our VP exploration, Miguel Davila, who's our senior geologist, and he's got I don't want to say how many years, over 40 years of experience in Mexico. He's worked on all of the major mines. He's been responsible for finding many, many mines. Was Randy Smallwood's right-hand man. Randy is the head of the World Gold Council at Wheaton Precious Metals, and lots and lots of experience there. Jen Roskowski comes to us from First Quantum, along with Dr. Stephanie Sikora. They're experts in finding big mineral systems, and they're excellent at it. We also have a very strong team in Mexico. About 95% of our staff is Mexican based, and that includes people like Isabel Adame, who is our head of political government and investor relations, and Armando Vasquez, who is our senior geologist, who is comes from from excuse me, what's the goal again, Doug? I forget.
Yeah, he's from the Kmart School of Mines, and he's
Okay.
actually one of the youngest CPGs, or the American equivalent of a PGO in Mexico. So a lot of experience.
Yeah, so a very, very good team, lots of experience there. So we have the team that knows how to unlock that value, how to move those projects from exploration through to M&A. The third thing that you need to have present for the chances of a better probability of success as an investor is you need to have a team that knows how to be able to access financing. For junior mining companies, accessing the capital markets is usually one of the hardest things that they have in front of them. These equity windows are fleeting sometimes, and touch wood, we've had success since we got involved. In 2020, we've raised upwards of about $40 million over that time, and we're very focused on the efficient use of capital. As I said, my firm is still the largest shareholder. We hold almost just under 20%. Insiders, directors, officers, staff, we own another 6 to 7%. So about a quarter of the outstanding shares is tightly held by insiders. So dilution is a big deal to us. So we like to make sure that money goes in the ground. I think if I were to add a fourth point onto this, I think liquidity is a very key issue that is important from an investor standpoint. If you're looking to try and make money in this sector, a lot of the junior companies really do trade by appointment. It's very difficult to build positions, and maybe more importantly, it's difficult to liquidate positions. We understand that everybody has their own investment objectives, their own time horizons. We're all in this for return on investment. And so the easiest way for us to help our investors realize that is to make sure that the stock trades. We spend a lot of time doing things like this, working with groups like Anthony's, traveling the world, marketing, spreading the word. And frankly, it's worked, because we were one of those companies that did trade by appointment 4 or 5 years ago before we started this effort. And now, last quarter, we traded on average about 1.3 million shares a day globally. So you can get in and you can get out. Next slide, please. Our capital structure. And this will touch on some of the things I just talked about. The average daily volume last quarter, 1.34 million. We just did finalize a small raise of which was upsized to 3.3 million dollars Canadian. That was started out over the end of the year as a very difficult undertaking. Admittedly, by the time we got it done in mid-February, it was much easier. It seems the sentiment has turned, inbound calls, and we were able to upsize that. At these prices, we weren't interested in taking much more capital. Again, that whole dilution issue that we have. We expect that with what we're working on and the road ahead, we will be able to do the next financing at a significantly higher price and minimize that dilution. We have no debt, about 300 million shares outstanding, and as I mentioned earlier, about 25% insider ownership. That marketing that we've been doing over the last number of years has been largely to Europe. We've had great pickup from European shareholders, and it's hard to tell exactly, but we estimate between 25 and 35% of our shareholders are now based on the continent. We've just started back in December to market in the US. with Tory Hills. We've had a lot of success to date. We think that good feedback, and we're hoping that we're going to be able to continue to do this and bring in a much larger shareholder base. So what I'll do,
Question,
yep, sorry.
if you don't mind, Chris, on the
Yeah.
capital structure, what will you do with the funds from the most recent raise is one of them.
Well, we're continuing to work towards an updated resource estimate for Zacatecas, which is our historical resource area. Our publicly stated goals, we're looking to triple the historical resource to about 50 million ounces. We see a path to 100 million ounces in the camp with the acquisitions that we made from both Mag Silver and Pan American Silver. And Doug will walk you through uh, that path right there. Plus, we're also looking to get into to fall and do some exploration work there. Again, we see good upside there for increasing the resource. We're looking. I think the goal is, as I said earlier, is return on investment. So we're always looking to move these assets forward. We're going to do it in a measured way. Unfortunately, we had a pretty nasty bear market there from 2021 through to probably this time last year, and we just weren't getting paid for the exploration work we were doing. So we shut down the drilling and we're just sort of biding our time doing a lot cheaper work, still effective work that sets up our next drill campaign, but the reality is that our shareholders just weren't getting paid for the money we were spending. You're spending $1 million a month drilling, and you come out with great results, and the stock goes down. That's not good for our shareholders. So we kept the money, and what we're looking to do now is ramp up to getting that work started. As I think the environment's signaling a turn here. We'll need to get some more money for that, but as I said, I think we can do that at higher prices.
And the other question was, what were the terms of the last raise? What price and were there warrants involved?
Yes, last raise was done at 20 cents a unit, and each unit comprised one share and a half warrant, and the half warrant's good for 2 years at 35 cents.
And those are all Canadian raises.
All Canadian dollars, yes.
Great. Thank you.
So what I'd like to do is I'd like to turn it over to Doug, and he'll walk you through both of the projects, what we have, and where we're going.
Thanks, Chris. So we'll start here with Zacatecas, given that it's been largely the focus of the company for the last 4 years, and is arguably one of the top exploration projects, particularly in Zacatecas, if not in this Fresnillo, Zacatecas, or the Faja de Plata, or the Mexican Silver Belt. And Zacatecas is a world-renowned silver district. It counts for about 50% of the silver production of Mexico, and Mexico, by a long shot, is the world's largest silver producer. So you can stack Zacatecas State up against other countries, and Zacatecas State is producing more silver than, say, Australia or some of the sort of third, fourth, fifth, sixth place silver-producing countries in the world. So it really is a world-class mining district. And that's why we start out with this painting that was done in the 1700s. It's a nice view of what the city looked like. And beneath these buildings and beneath these roads, and a lot of this ground is actually owned or under option to Defiance. But over 300 million ounces of silver was produced from 2 mines. But this district has produced about 1 billion ounces of silver. So it's been in near continuous production for almost 500 years, and we're the second largest landowner in the district. So just stepping back again to talk about Zacatecas and why we think it's probably one of the world's premier mining jurisdictions, it's really supported by who is working here and who are our closest neighbors. So starting in the north in the Concepcion del Oro district, you have the Penasquito mine, which is a world-class mine. It produces 20% of Newmont's gold equivalent ounces. Just south of that's Camino Rojo project, which is Orla Mining's, and Orla Mining's been one of the top producing stocks in the last 5 years, and you've seen them go through the M&A trend, and really that's on the backbone of this very high margin operation, this oxide gold operation that looks good, like it keeps expanding, is going to have a big mine life. So, and just, the other players in that district, you'll see them coming up around Minera Frisco. That's Carlos Slim's mining company traded on the Mexican Stock Exchange, Grupo Mexico, and some of the other ones. But in this core belt where we have this blue line right down the middle, that's produced about 10% of the known silver ever globally, like cumulatively globally. So, the best place to look for silver is where it is. And obviously that is shown with who our neighbors are. So just starting with Pan American Silver at La Colorada, that's a tier one deposit. It's a tier one discovery that they made there. That's going to be one of their largest underground silver operations, particularly with the Skarn discovery. And they're about 100 kilometers away from us, but right in between Pan American's La Colorada and our project, our Zacatecas district, which includes us and the Cozamin mine, Capstone Copper's operation, is the Fresnillo mining district. So the Fresnillo mining district is legendary. It's the largest primary silver mining complex in the world. Fresnillo and Mag Silver have a joint venture on the Juanicipio, which will surpass the Fresnillo mine as the largest primary silver mine. And they're producing about 30 plus million ounces a year from that mining complex there. And we're in the same rocks, we're in the same geology, same age systems. And when you stand on our resource area or you stand up at Lucita, you can look over and see the Fresnillo mine. So closeology is very real here, but as geology behaves, not according to property boundaries, but according to large geologic terrains, we do have a strong case for the similarities between the two systems. Between the Fresnillo mine and the Zacatecas district, about 8 billion ounces of silver, 7.5 billion ounces of silver has been produced. So on a gross metal value at today's silver price at 100-to-1 silver to gold ratio, that's more gross metal value than the Carlin and Cortez district. So truly a world-class trend that we're sitting as the second largest landowner. When we step right into the Zacatecas district, you have Capstone Copper's Cozamin mine. They just put out their Q4 production numbers. They're increasing their copper production about a head grade at almost 2% copper, and they're producing for $1.45 a pound underground. So highly profitable, high margin underground operation that we share a common property boundary. And when you stand on our resource area, you look over and you see the mine, and it's less than 2 kilometers, or about about a mile and a half away from us. And then as you move away, I think one of the most important things that really was the strength of and what we really kind of looked at as why we were confident that the negative media around Mexico was sort of overblown was that in 2023, in the midst of when we're hearing that they're never going to allow another open pit mine in Mexico, Agnico Eagle stepped in for a $580 million direct investment, really throwing up the flag on their interest in copper projects, but on that San Nicolas project, which is a 50-50 joint venture between Teck and Agnico Eagle, and that values the project at pre-production $1.1 billion. So it's a world-class system. We have world-class partners. We have some of the largest mining partners, and some of the world's largest mining companies as neighbors. And as I said, it's arguably one of the best jurisdictions for mining in the world, producing about 50% of the silver of Mexico. But as well, in a more social setting, you have a very deep cultural understanding of the role of natural resources here. And the ability to permit and the ability to develop mines here is probably, unbeatable compared to some of the other jurisdictions. And the cost of production here is quite low. As I said, with Cozamin right next door to us, they're producing underground at about $1.40 per pound copper, and then silver as a byproduct. So we're surrounded by major companies. We're in a state that mining contributes to is the largest contributor to GDP, with a very supportive mining culture, surrounded by tier one deposits and tier one operations and some of the world's largest mining companies. And I'm sitting in Zacatecas right now. My house is right on top of a historical 300 million ounce mine. So it's certainly one of the best places in the world to explore, and we've been able to do it at a very low cost while driving discoveries in the district. So our thesis here at Zacatecas is it's like Fresnillo from the 1960s. Fresnillo, as I said, largest primary silver mining complex, about 40 kilometers, actually in our northern districts, about 25 kilometers away from us. Before Fresnillo found the I'm slipping on the names there. Santo Niño vein system. Sorry, before Fresnillo found the Santo Niño vein system in the 1970s, which really turned the lights back on when it was a 6,000 ton per day operation, they were actually in the Zacatecas mining district mining on our operation. Our operation is a historical 100 million ounce plus producer, looking for mill feed. But then they went back and they did really that basic work that nobody had done, because Mexico is very well known for vein chasing. And that surface exploration often got overlooked, particularly in the 1960s and 70s, before some of the major companies, particularly foreign major companies with the more methodical exploration, more kind of linear exploration models showed up. But then they found Santo Niño, and then the rest is history. They went from being a smaller producer than the Zacatecas district into the absolute monster that they are. But one of the things that we really like to point out here was until they had, made those discoveries, which really took everybody out of Zacatecas and over to Fresnillo, Zacatecas had produced more silver at a higher grade at higher tonnage operations. So the history is there. The legendary history of Zacatecas is very well known. You'd be hard pressed to find any geologist who's worked in Mexico who hasn't heard of the Veta Grande, which is kind of our pillar of the district. But we do have that history of production, but also that the majors have been looking at this. Now, what happened when they found the Santo Nino and then subsequently the Juanicipio project, which is Mag Silver's operation, is everybody kind of got over to Zacatecas, over to Fresnillo. The land consolidation kind of fell apart, looked a bit like a patchwork quilt of claim ownership. And so timing is everything, and that presented us the opportunity to come in and start to lace up the district. And so over the past 5 years, we've become the second largest landowner in the Zacatecas mining district, and actually only have one payment left to be 100% owner of the second largest land position in the Zacatecas district. So here is our land position in the district. As I said, we're in the city of Zacatecas. I'm sitting basically where the Z is in that city right now. I can get to the property. That takes about 10 minutes driving on a paved road. We have power on site. We have surrounded by operating mines, Cozamin, and then a private mine that we share a property boundary with. And in fact, we own the surface rights over the portal of that. About 25 minutes away from an international airport. This is a toll highway that cuts between the property. There's high tension power on most parts of the property across the northern part of Lucita, central Lucita, and then the San Nicasio district. And then we have the on-strike claims to the Cozamin mine, where actually they just put out some exploration numbers as they move towards that part of the operation. So when you stand on a resource area, you look at a large 4,400 ton per day underground operation. But within 100 kilometers of this property, there's over 50,000 tons of milling capacity. So there's a lot of optionality on what you can do with the asset. And we certainly are reviewing what we can do, as we do have a historical near surface, actually starting from surface resource estimate. But a very, very infrastructure-rich land package right down to the property itself, where we have open pits on the property. We have a lot of underground infrastructure. We have producing mines surrounding us. We have access portals on a number of different parts of the property. And then we have a team of people that understand the separation between not funding exploration through mining and separating the two of them, so that we're looking at the district where we're looking for 100 million ounces of silver. And then we're looking at the actual Veta Grande vein system where we're looking for 50 million ounces of silver. So the idea is, and this is our experience in Mexico, you're rarely going to entice a partner to come in on a more significant investment or as a buyout or any sort of strategic partnership if you can't demonstrate that you have a very long-term potential in the district. So get as much land as possible, work that land up in a very methodical manner, and that's what we've done over the past 5 years, and then show them that it's not just 5 years of mining potential on the Veta Grande, which is very clear to us that that's quite possible. But the actual district does support a longer mine life. And these systems are very, very big. They're very, very deep. The Cozamin mine here, they're over 1,300 meters deep mining in the system, and we've actually never gone deeper than about 400, 450 meters on our property. So a lot of vertical extent for exploration potential, and then the actual district has about 100 kilometers of vein strike length. A lot of them have never seen any drilling. So very rare that you can assemble a district scale land package in a world-class jurisdiction with both the mining potential and the exploration potential that we have here.
Hey, Doug, quick question.
Certainly.
Just came in um, to what you were just speaking to. Have you had any interest from a potential JV partner for either property? And the follow-up to that was, how much more will you have to do to get a JV partner? Because you just mentioned you will have to do a little bit more
Yeah.
in order to really unlock the value there. What do you think it's going to take to really get to that point?
So we had a lot of inbound up until 2022. Of course, there was a lot of political rhetoric that was going on with the previous administration. So that inbound was quite aggressive, and particularly on Topal, and then it started to trickle in. I mean, there's logical suitors for this asset within the area. We've got on one side of us Cozamin, we have on the other side of us Fresnillo, we have to the north of us some of the larger silver producers. We have a partnership with Pan American Silver where they retain a 2% interest in the Lucita parts, 2% NSR on the Lucita property. It's the only actual NSR that we can't repurchase, and they've told us, get to these certain milestones, and then we'll definitely take a run at it. And then we'll take a look at it as a target for their large operation they have about 100 kilometers away from here. And then we also have had some strategics come in and look at what is the mining potential of this thing. So we are developing our strategy for the next, 2 years on this asset. And one of the components is unlock the value on the actual near-term mining potential while parallel developing the district as a, a large resource body. What we need to do, and this is kind of our internal opinion, is get the resource up to 50 million ounces silver on the Veta Grande. And then from there, that's that's a pretty significant ore body considering that it starts at surface and is surrounded by mines. And then putting together sort of an internal PEA, we call them a mine to mill study, which then sequences that project, not disturbing the future of the operation. And as I said, the deposit on Santa Cassio is starting at surface, so we don't want to pull that thing out and mess up any future mining at depth on the property. So as an overview, what we need to do is get the resource up to 50 million ounces, demonstrate that optionality, that value unlocking on the main Veta Grande, the historical mines, and then show that the district has a lot of upside potential in resource growth. And as I said, we're well on the way there. We do have just a pipeline of targets that we could easily drill 50,000 plus meters on and really not even scratch the surface. And I've never actually worked on a team with so many people in agreement that there is a large ore body to be found on this property, or there is a large resource body to be found on this property. So, or potentially ore body to be found on this property. So, what we're really looking at right now is trying to do a lot of this stuff in-house. It's definitely the most effective when we have the team of people to do that. So we have that mine engineering crew, and then we can bolt on a couple other people, and then we have that distinct exploration focus with Jen and Stephanie and about the 25 people that we have working here in Zacatecas. So we're well on our way to demonstrating the dollar value of that mining potential, and then of course the speculative value of a resource potential where you're applying some type of estimated value on the ounces in the ground, and that's been sliding around. I will say that the M&A space in Mexico has really been heating up, both on the projects that are available, on the sort of deal flow for us to look at, but also the major transactions. So there's over $2.7 billion of M&A transactions on underground silver mines in Mexico in the last 12 months. And interestingly enough, the two parties that took the biggest chunks, First Majestic and Core, they know us very well. They were in a bidding war on our last asset, located about 3 hours away from here. So it's pretty straightforward what we're trying to do. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's trying to unlock the value on the multiple optionalities on the asset. And we certainly do have eyes on the property that did sort of get a bit smoldered during AMLO's administration. But now with the new Secretary of Economy, who's the former head of foreign investment, their idea to vertically integrate a lot of these projects into Mexico so that the product stays in here and that there's a lot more value in it. We're seeing some more interesting people kind of showing up and looking at the asset. But right now, our objective is to try and do as much of it as we can, as we think that value gets put to the shareholders a lot better when you're doing it internally and having the bigger people kind of circling around.
Yep, makes sense. Thank you.
So just on like I was saying, we have the pipeline of projects. I'll just talk about kind of where we're at here. So this Veta Grande vein system, that's a 150 million ounce historical producer. That's where our historical resource area is. That's where we have the neighbors operating, and we have surface rights over top of our kind of our highest grade part of the drilling that we put out in the last couple of years. But that also covers the portal for the main access point of our neighbor's mine. And the underground workings of our property actually do connect over to the underground workings of the neighboring asset and their crushing circuit and their mill. So there's a logical synergy to be done there, but we're just not quite there yet. And then of course that's in our strategy is to look at what options we have with toll milling, what options we have with actually developing the resources ourselves, or start developing any infrastructure ourselves. But all of that is really focused on how big is the ore body here. How deep can we go in the ore body here? Can we get this thing to look like the Cozamin vertical profile where they're 800 meters deeper than we are? And then moving into the more brownfields exploration targets around the Santa Cassio vein system or around the Veta Grande vein system, and then the Lucita, which is our more grassroots property, which we did make 2 discoveries on in 2022 and 2023. and then moving into the Casa de Cerros, which Pan American Silver drilled in 2011 and 2012 with some pretty nice results. And we can actually be quite dynamic on the work here. We do have a capacity to drill. We have permits that we can drill off of any disturbed area, and so that is quite a lot of disturbed area, given that it's a 500-year-old mining camp. So we're well along on the resource build out on the San Nicasio, the resource area, and then that pipeline of targets are really supporting our thesis of that 100 million ounces in the district and the potential 100 million ounces in the district. And so that's what you're looking at when you go north to south. This is the more advanced, the pillar of the district, and then as we get to the more northern properties of the district, that's where you see that kind of that blue sky growth in the district. Here's again just a map of the area showing how many veins are in here, what's been mining. Malanoche, it's an east-western vein. We've got a couple of those on the property. The Palenque is where we drilled 2 discoveries last year, and then Gloria Aurora, I think, is one of the top silver exploration targets in Mexico. So I'll quickly walk through those and stay a little sort of 50,000 foot level, but just as you go north to south on the district, here's the El Bote Cantera mine. That, like I said, I'm sitting right there as I'm talking to you. The El Bote Cantera system, that's over 300 million ounces of silver. Capstone's produced 20 million ounces of silver in the last 6 years. The Malanoche vein system, and about 650 million pounds of copper as well. The Concha mine in Veta Grande, that's 150 million ounces of historical production. All of these vein systems typically have some type of working on them. They're very steadfast miners here. They're very effective miners here. And there is an organization of the small mining complex here where they do develop mines like kind of as a private operation. And so there is a lot of workings, there's a lot of surface disturbance, which gives you a three-dimensional glance if you're out prospecting, you're out mapping in the district. Here's our Veta Grande, very, very competent vein system, very large, very wide vein system as well. And then Palenque, 2 discoveries in Gloria. So a lot of veins, as I said, over 100 kilometers of mapped vein strike length on our property. Very rare that you would see that in any district, let alone a world-class mining district. We've done 25,000 meters of drilling on San Nicasio. We'll be doing another drill campaign coming up here for resource confirmation, and we're expecting a resource estimate in 2025. We have our internal models. We've been doing internal resource estimates. We have one resource modeler, one geologic modeler, and then we have third-party engineering firms that are working with us to get the target, both the targeting and that competent land power, competent resource body together. We've been doing a trenching program over top of the main deposit area, and when I say it's a historic district, we're doing trenching in historic pits that have been in operation for a while. Like, it's a very, very well established district, and it's quite impressive, even if you go on Google Earth and see what it looks like here. The goal is to get that resource estimate out by the end of the year, and we have a couple more steps, particularly a small drill program on it. Alongside that, we will exercise the option for 100% ownership, and it's the final payment on any land acquisition that the company has right now. So that'll be nice to put that to bed. And then we will, of course, continue to look at what the mine model could be. We work with a couple engineering firms on that. One of the reasons that we're reviewing what the mine model was, as I said, historically in Mexico, you have a lot of people that are just vein chasing, and they're vein chasing very high grades, particularly in the late 1800s, early 1900s. They hadn't come up with the modern processing technology, and that left a lot of in situ mineralization. So that's going to change what our mine plan looks like. But when you do go through and see where we're at in terms of widths of the vein system, so 2023, we drilled a 41-meter wide intercept of 157 grams per ton silver with some base metal credits, and typically these base metal credits have their very higher grade zones. But when you step through and you look at the drill holes that we've done over the past 6 or 7 years, they're all very wide intercepts. 1508 on this one being the shortest one at 7.3 meters at 600 grams per ton silver. So the average processing grade in the district is probably about 60 to 80 grams per ton silver underground with the associated base metal credits. It is very low cost mining here, so that cutoff grade does go down significantly. And this ore, as we've talked about with some of our largest shareholders, including some of our largest shareholders being some of the largest off-takers in the world, they have set this ore trucks well, and at any point, and I'll be meeting with them next week again, at any point that we want to do a study to see if we could stand alone, ship this to other mills, they're ready to do that. A lot of this stuff, as you can see, is very near surface mineralization. So from 70 meters, you're 33 meter vein at 105 grams per ton silver. So very mineable widths, very wide widths, very near surface. The deposit, or the historical deposit, starts at surface. And again, it's got the tremendous benefit of a world-class mining district to kind of fall on the infrastructure, and then the knowledge of how to mine these systems with a very skilled local workforce. Lucita, this was a darling for us. We ranked the district. We used to work with Pan American Silver on another property in Mexico, so they knew that we're very diligent explorers. We're very cost-effective explorers, and we try and get drilling as quick as possible, but we don't drill just to drill. We work up targets and we drill based on the strength of the targets, and that's why we have a 90% hit rate with our drilling in certain parts of the property, particularly on the Veta Grande. We exercised the option for 100% ownership in 2023. It tripled our land position. This property alone is 2,700 hectares. So it's a very, it's a standalone property itself. We got it for $1.5 million US in cash, and they retained a 2% NSR. I think we caught lightning in a bottle, and as anybody who's been investing in the mining industry knows, timing is really everything with this. And when we approached Pan American Silver in March 2020, it was at the same time as they were shutting down their global mines and had no revenues coming off of that. So showing up with with a check to buy this property, we really did catch lightning in a bottle. Since then, we have defined a very high-grade polymetallic system in the north that Pan American Silver kind of missed in their modeling. They did have some good drill results, but they just didn't really get into where we think the juice of the system is. And then in Lucita South, we did a first pass 4,200 meter drill program that we made 2 discoveries, one over 3 kilograms per ton silver, and then one we hit 5 different veins at a blind vein system discovery. Very similar kind of structural setting as what we found at La Preciosa about 3 hours away. So one of the interesting stories about this Lucita property, and it just speaks to when you've been working in Mexico, I've been working in Mexico for about 15 years now. There is, when you go into the data room with someone, everybody's in the same data room. So we have to be very careful when we talk to our friends because, I've been sitting in the room with someone and he's gotten a phone call and he says, we acquired that. Oh, we got that asset. And it's just like, well, then I got to get on the phone with our staff and be like, hey, you got to delete the data room. There's only about 6 people that have the capacity to take on these large exploration projects. And one of them phoned us about 5 minutes after the news crossed the wire that we acquired this asset. So we acquired this asset. We entered into the option agreement in 2020. About 5 minutes after the news crossed the wire, Brad Cook phoned me up, the late Brad Cook, who passed away recently. He's the founder of Endeavor Silver. Endeavor Silver was in this data room for 3 years. And as a result of, timing is everything, they couldn't get to a point where they're getting an agreement. And then Pan American basically took this off the shelves of a project that they were going to sell. He instantly offered to fund our exploration for an ownership of the property. And we said, I think we can do a good job with this ourselves. And since then, we've worked up a very, very solid program. And of course, made some big discoveries. So as I said, in the north, this is probably our earliest stage target. Just stepping back and explaining where we are, there's the resource area. Here's the Palenque vein system in the north. This is our earlier stage target. It's a very wide, very long, very high grade. It's a polymetallic system, true polymetallic system that has a bit of a different flavor than the sort of intermediate sulfidation veins of the Veta Grande. We have road access on here. We have an operating permission. We have agreements with the Ejido, the local surface right landowners, and we can start drilling on this Gloria Aurora Pelosas. And you can see just on this map, it's over 2 kilometers of very, very good grade mineralization and a lot of old historic workings on this property as well. So that's kind of our earliest stage target, but the one that we're going to try and get a drill onto as quick as possible. Our neighbors to this asset, just to speak to that one, I'll touch that one quickly. Our neighbors have a 16 million ounce resource on a 1 kilometer long structure. Over here, we have 4 kilometers of that structure. It extends onto our property. We call it the Bernice, the very nice structure. And that, that extends for this vein system extends for over 4 kilometers on our asset. And they have a 16 million ounce resource over 1 kilometer over here. So we do know that structure and those veins extend onto our property, and the ability to build out a resource on that is very real. This is where we made 2 discoveries. As I said, we hit 5 different veins, two up to 700 grams per ton silver at depth. And then on the eastern half here, we drilled up to 3 kilograms per ton silver, 3 meters of 500 grams per ton. Our thesis on this was, and this is really why we acquired the property, this Palenque vein system. Nobody could ever get a surface rights agreement on this. We've been working with the local surface owners for a decade now, over a decade now. They know us very well. We had a surface rights agreement within 6 months, and we were drilling it within 12. So that was something that Pan American could never get done. Nobody else could get the surface rights agreement, and that was holding up Pan American from doing any work. And so we just stepped across this thing. Logically, as you step across a long vein system, it's over 4 kilometers long, and just kind of drilled it on centers and made 2 discoveries there and 1 discovery in the Taotes vein system. So 3 meters of 700 grams, but up to 1.6 kilos. And then, as I said, up to 3.2 kilos here, and then a very wide structurally controlled zone of veining that looks to be that's one of my favorite targets one of my favorite targets that I've had under the belt for a while. So I'm going to move from the San Nicasio and the Zacatecas districts into the copper gold district. So if there's any questions about the silver district, maybe we could just jump on them right now so they don't get kind of left behind before I start talking about copper and gold.
Um, when specifically will you have the resource update on Zacatecas? I know you said the second half of this year or late this year.
Yep.
And how much do you expect it to change versus the last one?
Well, like I said, it has to be a substantial change from the historic resource estimate. The historic resource, so for me, we're looking for 50 million ounces. If we put out a double of the historic resource estimate, that would be seen as very good in the market, considering it starts at surface. We are aiming for 50 million ounces. We do have the targets for 50 million ounces, and we'd like to get one small drill program to confirm some of the gaps in the drilling previously. We have engaged third-party engineers to kind of give us that independent validated model where we should go to add the ounces or add the tonnage to the system. And so we'll like to complete one more drill program in this area, and then look to do the resource modeling from there. I would suspect sort of Q3, beginning of Q4 is a good target for us, given that we'll be really working the Zacatecas district quite hard for the next 3 months, and then flipping over to Paul to work that one up. And so that's our target right now, the end of Q3, beginning of Q4, and we're looking for 50 million ounces, so there's that potential. But anything above a double of the historic resource estimate, I think, is going to be seen quite favorably from the market, particularly with the exploration upside and the demonstrated models that we can show where you can go with the exploration.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks.
Cool. So here's a picture of Morelia. It's one of the most beautiful cities in Mexico. It's kind of like mini Mexico City. It actually went back and forth as the capital, or trying to be the capital of Mexico for a while. And Michoacan State's a beautiful place to work. It's a beautiful area. We're not in Morelia. We're not near this city. It's just kind of shows you that there has been people in and around here for a long time, and it is truly one of the most beautiful cities in Mexico. And again, we like to lead in with that. Lead in with this nice picture. So Michoacan, it's about it's central Mexico, we'll say. It has large operating mines in the area. ArcelorMittal has a large operating mine. There's large concentrate pipelines. The largest deep sea shipping port in Mexico is located here. And this project itself it benefits from a lot of great infrastructure as well. The catalyst to look for on Topal as we jump into it is that new mineral resource estimate that was completed and how we develop the project outside of that. So anytime people want to understand that, I can kind of walk through what that looks like. It'll take a little bit longer than what we're doing. I'll touch on it quickly here. And that exploration outside of that high-grade mineralization that we found in one of the areas. And we are looking to do, we're going to have a team there quite quickly, relogging all of the historical drill core. It's about 65,000 meters of drill core that was done by Teck, Inco, Hecla, and then more recently from Geologics. Not a lot of drilling has been done here since 2012. It really was looked at a drill and build model, and they nearly got it across the line until the market, or the wheels of the market, kind of fell off at least in the gold market in 2016. So the opportunity for us to come in and redo the model was tremendous, and that's what we have a great track record and team who have worked on these large copper systems, and have a lot of experience in drilling and building out these big deposits. One thing that's really nice is we're not starting from scratch. Sometimes it's tough to invest in junior exploration companies that are drilling their first, 3 holes into a porphyry system. When I see that, I say, okay, that's really nice. You've drilled that hole. You now need to bring in a partner. Equity dilution on a drill out of a porphyry project is very real. I mean, we're starting with 60,000 meters of drilling and a resource estimate. So now we're just looking to expand and then add that to our current model. And this project up until 2022 was definitely in the sights of a number of companies on the M&A side. As a result of that political rhetoric that was going on, it kind of stepped off, but certainly we're seeing an increase in visibility of the asset. And our last financing, we did have a number of people that participated in it who are very interested in this project. So here it shows you where we are. There's Mexico City underneath the legend there. Morelia, as I said, it's not too far from Mexico City. We're actually about 4.5, 5 hours drive from Morelia, but very close to the Manzanillo port, very close to Lázaro Cárdenas port. Manzanillo is the largest concentrate shipping facility in Mexico. Lázaro Cárdenas is the largest deep sea port on the western side of Mexico. We have paved roads to site. We have a hydroelectric facility nearby that has capacity for all of the required mine build from the historical PEAs that were done on the property. There's power on site. There's a very skilled local workforce here, and then we're surrounded. We've got large operations around here as well. ArcelorMittal, of course, has 2 operations on either side of us. Mexico's largest iron ore producer just outside of Colima, and then Las Truchas, which is a iron ore milling complex with a concentrate pipeline all the way to Lázaro Cárdenas port. So again, an area of people that understand the role of mining, and most major companies do have operations here. Peñoles, ArcelorMittal, Frisco, just to name a few. The surface rights is a bit of a different scene here. So in Zacatecas, in Mexico, you typically have sort of 3 levels of surface ownership. You have private ownership, as if you're buying real estate, you or I or anybody private sale real estate. You have ejido ownership, which is land that's granted to the local community, and they control the flow of work on there. So in Zacatecas, we have all of the ejido agreements over top of all of our property to work. In Topal, the surface rights are controlled by private landowners, and we are in advanced negotiations to put together a long-term surface access agreement with them. No company working here has had that agreement in place, so if we can do that, that'll be, I think, a significant milestone for the company. And as I said, the infrastructure is great. Our financial offices are in Guadalajara. It takes about 5 hours to drive from Guadalajara to the property, all on paved roads, and you're following power lines the whole way. And then the town of Tepalcatepec, which is nearby, it's about 40,000 person town. So a lot of people, a lot of availability for machinery, and a very skilled local workforce that understands, industry, which is, I think, important for mining wherever you go. So here's our mineral resource estimate that we put out. It's very important to remember that this mineral resource estimate was done on drilling prior to our involvement and was a requirement that we put it out. We had to get this up to a modern, the Canadian industry of mining. The CIM standards changed. Therefore, we had to change the resource estimate, and unfortunately, they made us do it before we could get any of our work. So we did about 2.5 years of modeling on this property. We still haven't even been able to put a drill hole into it, and we had to do the resource estimate update, which kind of was good, but it's just going to look different over the next few years. But it isn't insignificant. It's got almost 1 million ounces of gold measured and indicated, and 473 million pounds of copper measured and indicated. About 5.5 million ounces of silver measured and indicated, but in the inferred category, you almost double that resource at another almost 1 million ounces of gold inferred, and another 450 million pounds of copper inferred. So it's a great starting point, and I think we can show you where we see the capacity to increase that resource in both grade grade distribution, and then also in size of the system. So again, this is I'll just roll through this again because we just talked about that number, but all of these are available for you, and Anthony will circulate this information for you. It is a component of oxide and sulfide mining, and the historical resource estimate the historical PEAs, starting with Teck's internal scoping studies, did look at this as a 5,500 ton per day vat leaching oxide operation, CIL vat leaching oxide operation. And then transitioning into a traditional concentrate flotation conventional mining on a copper gold silver, creating a copper gold silver concentrate. So it's nice, again, that you have the optionality. But again, what we're doing right now is going back and saying, why is the mineralization here? How can we have these super high grade structures on certain parts of the property where they're returning over an ounce gold and 500 grams per ton silver? Why are they here? Why do we have massive sulfide veins crossing the property? And they were really overlooked in the past because it was looked at as a drill and build model. And it's a great model if you've got the resource starting at surface like we do here. But we're looking at how does this thing get as big as possible, and how do we then show that you can move from that, more conventional mining method as an open pit to going from oxide to open pit sulfide, and then down into an underground operation, particularly on the south zone. So here's a cross section through the deposit. I know I'm getting over time here, so I'll keep it kind of tidy. You can see the deposit starts at surface. It's in the historical PEAs, it was a 0.7 to 1 strip ratio. Your first blast makes you money. And I think the south zone is really going to be where we'll focus a lot of our attentions. South zone and some of the north zone as our immediate drill targets. And then we'll be trenching over top of the Tizate zone to pan up what we think are some very high grade massive sulfide structures. The reason we put this here is because of our experience working in porphyry systems globally. So what we do have is a reinterpreted geologic model that we've applied to the type of porphyry system, which are very well documented, very well understood due to the size and global scale of these porphyry mines, and our experience in having worked in those areas. So as a setting, it sits in a world-class structural setting. It's where you want to be for a porphyry deposit. And then we've had a lot of modeling done internally with Dr. Stephanie Sikora, who did her PhD with Newmont on the Lahire epithermal porphyry complex. And so I've worked at the Red Chris project. She understands Acadia District quite well with their exposure to Newmont. What you can see here is where these things kick up and where the bulk of the higher grade mineralization, the bulk of the size and scale of the system, it occurs around this hashed 1,000 meter elevation. But look at the east zone at Red Chris, you look at Cadia East, you look at Ridgeway, you see that they have the same scale and size of surface mineralization. Of course, a lot more drilling. We have the same scale and size of surface mineralization. And as you drill deeper into the system gets hotter, like better grade, higher temperature mineralizations, closer to the core of a porphyry. And the deepest hole into this part of the system in that south zone, as I said, what I think is the most significant near-term, what would be a near-term production, but near-term resource build-out, the deepest hole into this property, which is not included in the resource estimate, is 150 meters of 0.4% copper and 1.2 grams per ton gold. And it sits right here. As you can see, this is how they found the east zone. You step down looking for that hotter temperature mineralization, trying to get around that 1,000 meter elevation to transition from an open pit. As you see from our model, transitioning from an open pit, I think it'll actually look like a smaller open pit, and then going after this body as an underground body, as recommended by our resource geologists. But you transition from that open pit into an underground, much like they did at the Cadia Hill, Cadia Quarry, into the Cadia and the Ridgeway deposits. It's a pretty well demonstrated type of system, and given that we've just kind of scratched the surface, I think that the potential for us to drill additional zones outside of the south zone, as you can see, sitting on this major structural corridor, where they haven't really done any drill testing, if any drill testing in the past 20 years, on stuff that has been very, very historically returned very, very high grade mineralization. So we'll be trenching the Tizate area, and then we'll be drilling in the south zone at depth, and we'll be drilling in the north zone at depth, and testing the peripheral targets, or what would be brownfields or near mine targets, to add into a updated resource estimate. So the catalyst for the next 12 months, we did just publish an updated technical report on Zacatecas, which will be the backbone of a resource estimate. We'll be continuing exploration drilling shortly on this property. We're looking for, in the next couple of months to get the drills back on site. We have an operating partnership with Major Drilling. They have a regional office at the La Colorada mine site about 3 hours away from here. And from the day that we decide to start drilling, we can have a full drill campaign going where we're collecting data and getting it to the lab in less than a month. So our turnaround's quite low. And our direct drill cost is very low. Drilling meterage cost is $100 US, 100 depending how deep you're going, but $100 US, $100 to $150 US. And then all in, we're just a bit north of $200 US per meter. So very low cost exploration in Zacatecas. We are exercising the option to earn 100% of the San Nicasio project, so that'll give us a boost in our ownership. And then, of course, following up on the surface work on the Lucita South and Palenque, and then the first drilling campaign at North. So a lot going on in Zacatecas, a very busy district. Right now, the city is very, very busy with the guys from Agnico around. Epiroc just built a mine. Epiroc's a major mine, underground mine equipment manufacturer. They just built a major manufacturing plant here in Zacatecas. You have Fresnillo and Mag Silver just ramping up their operations. So Zacatecas is really one of the hubs of mining right now in Mexico. It's great to be here. Actually, I'm sitting here. It's 25 degrees Celsius. So. And then our Topal project, as I said, we just ran through that. Exploration is really focused on building out the resource at depth in the South Zone, and then showing that there's a lot of top tier targets that are going to expand the surface footprint of the system, and that we get start with trenching and then follow up with drilling, aiming at really expanding on that resource, showing the quick turnaround surface oxide mining component, the more conventional open pit sulfide milling targets, and then the at depth underground mining potential, and it's very well supported by the grades and size of the system at depth. And we expect to have a sampling campaign going there starting in April, and then be drilling at Topal in the fall. So that's the next 12 months. Thanks a lot. I don't know if you have any more questions here.
Yeah, we do. And thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Clear that the company's well positioned, unlocked tremendous value at both properties. And so very excited for the next 12 to 18 months to see what unfolds. I want to open it up for questions. If anyone has any questions, please type them into the Q&A or chat box. We'll make sure they get answered. We already have a bunch in queue. So I'm going to hit you guys rapid fire here. Would you ever consider divesting the Topal project? If so, what do you think it's worth?
Yes, the short answer is yes, and we're actively going through the process now, preparing for a potential spin out or IPO of that. It'd be nice if somebody would come along and buy it from us. That'd be great too. We've had some preliminary valuations done by third party bankers. On a peer to peer basis. We're looking at somewhere between conservatively 80 to $100 million US. It'd be
Great.
nice to spin it out because then this presentation would be half as long.
And what did you pay for Topal?
We paid about $4 million Canadian in stock.
Wow. Does management intend to sell development projects or construct and operate multiple mines?
No, we're an exploration company. We're looking to unlock shareholder value and provide liquidity for shareholders through either selling the property, joint venturing it, or spinning it out, and then having an actively traded stock so that people can get in and out on their own.
Great.
But being an exploration company and being a producer are two very, very different things.
Yeah, absolutely. How has the new administration changed in Mexico versus previous?
Doug, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so it's been excellent. Uh, the I mean, the backbones of the political, or sorry, the campaigning was that nothing's going to change. We're going to keep the same administration. And then within 2 months of Claudia Sheinbaum being sworn in, winning the election, I should say, and then being sworn in, she completely changed the Secretary of Economy, which the Directorate of Mines falls under the Secretary of Economy. And the new head of the Secretary of Economy, the new Secretary of Economy, is the old head of foreign investment for Mexico. So he is a very, very astute businessman that understands how important foreign investment is into Mexico. And I think that's ties in really well to this sort of global uncertainty around North America, in that you are getting a lot of nearshoring of foreign investment in Mexico. But then the other thing that was really positive for us, and we did see it just 2 weeks ago with Alamos Gold getting their permits, their SEMARNAT permits on the Puerto del Aire expansion project, which is just below one of their big open pits. There was a holdup on getting SEMARNAT permits, so your permits to mine, your environmental impact assessments. So what happened was the entire administration of the SEMARNAT bodies were changed as well, and now we're seeing permits get issued back in Mexico. So we were kind of holding, we're in a holding pattern for a couple of years on being able to get any types of permits in Mexico. And then in less than 6 months, we saw a major mining company get a permit. I'm sure there have been others to the private mining companies as well. I think you're going to start to see that trickle down. And the Mexican government is operating, kind of under that United Nations Human Rights Tribunal, where prior consideration of your exposure, working with the local communities, is going to play favorably in you getting a permit. So we have a lot of operating partnerships and a 10-year and over the last 10 years in this area, and we do have a lot of strong community support. And so I think as the permits get trickled down, you can imagine how big, and Mexico's a big fan of paper filing, and you can imagine how big of a stack of paper the Seminat offices are being, and the Director of Mines offices have in front of them right now. So the logical thing is for the larger foreign investment companies, or the larger investment companies in Mexico, the Mexican national mining companies, to get their permits first, so that they're driving, taxes on or production taxes in Mexico. And that's what I've been saying this for over a year. I think this is what's going to happen, and it did kind of pan out that way. But we, publicly we're seeing Canadian mining companies, Alamos Gold particularly, get their mining permits. So this new administration has been very positive. They've been very outspoken about the need to kind of vertically integrate their production facilities here in Mexico, both on the early, the upstream, like actual production of the metals, to the downstream, how's it being used in the BMW factory, the the Tesla battery factory, the big photovoltaic, the solar cell industry here in Mexico, just the big infrastructure and manufacturing industry in Mexico. And there's been a lot of outspoken confidence in the ability to really vertically integrate a lot of this into Mexico. And a lot of that is built on this thing called the Plan Mexico. So if you want to learn about more, just Google up Plan Mexico, and it does speak to what Claudia Sheinbaum is doing, and really, reinventing, or, just kind of lighting on fire here in Mexico is what, the rhetoric that was spoken by the previous administration. And she quickly pulled out a lot of that anti-open pit mining, and they are going to Supreme Court review on a lot of the I think unconstitutional changes that were made to the mining regime here in Mexico. So it has been very positive for us, and I think the global investment community has showed up too. We're getting a lot of inbound for stuff to do here in Mexico, and we're seeing new companies show up, leaving the United States to work in Mexico, exploration companies looking at assets in Mexico. And so the new administration, in my opinion, has been very, very positive, but it isn't exactly news, or like breaking news that they were going to be a positive change, given her experience as the mayor of Mexico City, and the involvement in large infrastructure projects around Mexico. So a very positive change, both on the Secretary of Economy, and then as well with the Seminat offices. And we're starting to see that really show up in a very favorable way for the visibility of Mexico as the epic mining center that it is.
Great. Any options in the money right now?
There are a few, not many. Um, maybe maybe 10% of the options outstanding.
Okay. Any potential in the money enough where you think you could raise a significant or meaningful amount of money, or is it still
Well, the options are all used for compensation
okay?
for directors and staff. So if there are warrants that are in the money,
Yes.
absolutely, from last year. So there's potential to get some cash in from that. Um, but we did see about a year ago, or sorry, last fall, we did see some of those get exercised. But they're basically barely in the money right now. So I expect to see it if we see a run up in the stock. I wouldn't be surprised to see more cash come in.
Okay. And then the last two questions are: what are the elevations of the property, and what is your burn rate now?
Oh, very different questions.
I know.
So,
One for you
yeah,
and one for Doug and one
Zacatecas.
for Chris.
Yeah, perfect. Zacatecas sits in the Altiplano. It's one of the higher parts of Mexico. Well, I'm sitting at about 2,400 meters right now. The Cozumel mine's about 2,450, and we're at the same elevation there at the bottom of our property. And then the mountains around here get up to 2,700 meters elevation. So that's about what, 9,000 feet? A bit less than that, about 8,800 feet. So it is higher elevation here, but not like the Chilean style properties, which are up around 4,000 meters, 12,000 feet. Um, and then at Topal, no, it's a much lower elevation project. The actual elevation is probably about 600 meters, maybe even a bit less than that. I don't have that actually off the top of my head, so I'll have to check on that.
No major overburden or anything like that.
No, these deposits start at surface. Like there's 100 kilometers of vein strike length that outcrops on our property.
Yeah, that's great. And then Chris, can you speak to the burn rate, please?
Yeah, the standard burn rates, call it 150,000 a month Canadian. That obviously changes dramatically if we're drilling, what kind of drill campaign we're running. But we run a pretty lean ship. That covers all of Mexico and the overhead we have in Canada. So say 150.
Great. I think we'll leave it there. I think that's all the questions we have for now. I want to thank Chris and Doug for getting our group up to speed on Defiance Silver. Definitely a good time to take a look at the company, especially with what's happening with silver and what they have on tap. We think that they're sitting on a huge deposit that's only going to get bigger, and the time horizon for this might not be as long as you think. I don't think they're interested in building a mine. They're really interested, as Chris mentioned, in delivering shareholder value.